Hi, my name is Alejandro Bracho. I'm a Mexican actor. You might remind me. No, cut.
I can cut it. That's fine. Yeah, don't worry.
Take two. If this had happened on the set in License to Kill, I would have gotten my balls cut off. Thank God we're not shooting the movie.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go again. Take two. Well, see, that's what happens with old age. Your memory goes down the drain.
I'm Tom Pickup, and we're here for a special interview with a henchman from our favourite James Bond film, License to Kill. And all the way from Mexico, this is Alejandro Bracho, who played Perez. So great to see you, Alejandro.
Hi, nice meeting you.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that you found me. How did you find me?
Yeah. Well, I think it was Instagram. I think it was John who you've been chatting to.
Yeah.
He managed to track you down, and you're in Mexico City now, I believe.
Yeah, I live in Mexico City.
Yeah, and you're now teaching acting, and you're an acting coach.
I mostly teach, and I coach, and I'm also acting. I'm starting a movie. Well, today I have a wardrobe fitting and makeup and all those things.
Right.
And tomorrow I have to start acting in that. It's a Mexican movie. I'm now 68 years old, so the older I get, the easier I try to make my life. So I don't accept too many commitments. And part of the reason I teach is because I decide my own hours.
Mm.
And so I don't have a boss, I'm my own boss. And the nice thing about teaching is that I don't have to audition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you get into acting, the world of acting, when you were young, presumably?
Younger.
Younger.
Yeah.
Still young. Still.
It runs in my family. I'm sure you're not familiar with Mexican actors, but it sort of came natural because my grandfather's brother was a famous film director, and my grandfather's sister was a big movie star in the 40s and 50s. And so talking about films at home was sort of an everyday thing. And then when I told my aunt I wanted to be an actor, she said, "Fuck off, be a doctor like your father." And so I fucked off for a while. And then I decided not to tell anybody, and I just started acting. And then one day they found out. And then the schools in Mexico at the time I didn't find attractive enough, so I went to New York City and I studied there for 4 years.
Right. Okay.
But my intent was always being an acting teacher. I always wanted to be an acting teacher. So when I came back to Mexico, I started teaching immediately. But it's sort of unavoidable that somebody hears about you or somebody, you know. So at a dinner party, I was sitting next to this old guy, and we were back then. I was a Buddhist monk.
All right.
And so I was dressed like a Buddhist monk. And so when the waiter came up and said, "Sir, would you like fish, chicken, or beef?" I said, "Neither. Do you have a salad?" Because I'm a vegetarian. So this old man turned and went, "What do you mean you're a vegetarian? Why are you a vegetarian?" So, "Well, because I'm a Buddhist monk." "What do you mean you're a Buddhist monk?" So for the rest of the dinner, we talked about all that. And then at the end of the dinner, he said, "Do you do anything else besides monking?" And I said, "Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm an actor." And he said, "How come you haven't auditioned for my movie?" I said, "Well, basically, I just got back from New York and I didn't know you were shooting a movie and I don't have an agent. So how would I know about your auditions?" So he told me to go to Churubusco Studios, which is where License to Kill was shot.
Yes. Yes.
And I went and I auditioned and I got the part. And then I got an agent. And so every now and then, I get invited to act in films. And then when we bid farewell, I didn't know who he was, and so we shook hands, and I said, "Okay, I'm Alejandro Bracho," and he said, "Arturo Ripstein." Arturo Ripstein happens to be the greatest film director of modern history in Mexico.
Wow.
And
Great
little
start.
did I know. Yeah, but it's good that I didn't know who he was. That way I didn't get nervous. To me, he was just an old geezer.
Yeah.
And he still is. So that's how I started in films. I almost didn't really, I didn't do anything to go into films. Films came into me.
Mm.
Even the story of how I got the part of Perez in License to Kill is kind of funny. Apparently, people think getting into a James Bond movie is like very, 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 very complicated. That's the feedback I get from people around me. But I was shooting another movie somewhere else. Back then, we didn't have cell phones or any of those things. And a casting director, deceased now, Claudia Becker, left a message in my hotel. So when I arrived in the hotel on Saturday after working, he said, "There's two. They call them gringas. Gringas in Mexico means American ladies. There's two American ladies who want to meet you, but they want to meet you today because they're leaving tomorrow. So come to me." And I was like a 3-hour drive from Mexico City. And I told her, "But I'm like in the boondocks. Are they going to wait?" She said, "Yeah, we'll eat and we'll wait for you." So I went there. I rushed to Mexico City and arrived there. And I didn't know these American ladies. They were two very nice American ladies. One of them was called Jane Jenkins, who was a casting director. She used to be like the very, very famous casting director back then. And she was very, very nice. And the other was a stunning young blonde by the name of Barbara Broccoli.
Mm.
Just two nice girls.
Yeah.
And so I was dressed in white because, again, I was a Buddhist. And so they asked me how come I was dressed in white. And for over an hour, we just talked about all kinds of stuff except film. We didn't talk about films at all.
Mm.
They just asked me how I was doing. And that movie was called Romero. And it was starring the late Raul Julia.
Mm.
So they asked me about Raul Julia. How is he? And I said, "Oh, he's the nicest guy. He's so much fun. In fact, I'm going to miss his party today because every Saturday he throws parties." And they said, "Oh, we're sorry." But they said, and then Jane said, "Oh, I heard you studied under Herbert Berghoff in New York City." And I said, "Yeah, I really loved him." And she said, "He was my teacher too." And we went, "Really? You're kidding me? We both had the same acting teacher?" "Yeah, oh, that's amazing." And so that sort of started the talk about movies. And then Barbara said, "Would you like to be in our movie?" And I said, "What movie?" And they said, "Well, we're shooting a movie starting on such day." And I said, "Gee, I don't know, because, the movie I'm in ends, we wrap up on such a date, and it only leaves me a week. And I already made plans with my girlfriend to come from New York and go on vacation. So let me think about it, okay?" And they said, "Okay, but don't think for too long because we have to start shooting soon." Okay, so when I told them, "Wouldn't you like to see me audition? Do you want me to read a scene or something?" And they said, "No, we know you're an actor. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here." And I said, "Okay." The casting director told me to call my agent. I called my agent. And my agent said, "You're not thinking about anything. I don't care if you break up with your stupid girlfriend. You're going to do this movie whether you like it or not."
Absolutely.
I was like, "Okay, well, I guess I have no choice." And I'm very happy I did it because it was a wonderful experience. All the Broccolis, Michael Wilson, everybody was really, really, really nice. It's one of the best experiences of my life as a human being and as an actor.
Oh,
Wow.
it was very easy getting into it. I didn't
Yeah,
do
you did
anything.
all right. We've actually spoken to Robert Darby. We've done an interview with Robert Darby. You must have spent a lot of time with him. I don't know whether you did you try and get into character about all these henchmen he has and the backstory and things like that.
Well, Robert was very, very nice. Although on screen he was a villain, off screen he was very, very loving and nice. He would oftentimes invite me to his hotel room for breakfast, and we would just talk about all kinds of stuff. And he was sort of I guess, a mentor to the younger actors.
Yeah, yeah.
Benicio was only 21, and I was 33, so I wasn't that young. And yeah, Robert is one of my favorite memories of the movie. I think we interacted more with Robert than we did with the rest of the cast. Yeah, so if you see him, tell him I said hello.
Yeah, we will do, definitely.
Yeah.
I really like that, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, some of those scenes you have with him, you're sort of in the background, or you got Bond under command, and you're trying to stop him from escaping. And Felix's torture scene, and with Della as well. You're in some pretty shocking scenes, to be honest, Alejandro.
So they told me, you're going to do the movie. I said, fine. And then the contract came, and I saw I was going to be in the movie for 16 weeks. That is a lot of time. I was there from day one. You can see the call sheet. I was there on day one, and my last call was on the last day of the shoot. So I was there all the time. And I got a bit nervous because I had never been in a movie for 16 weeks. And I said, can I talk to the director, please? And they were like kind of shocked. Why would you want to talk to the director? And I said, well, because I'm going to be in the movie for 16 weeks, and I kind of would like to know a little bit about my character, if nothing else. And they said, well, he's very busy, but okay, he's got 5 minutes and he can see you. So I walked in, and there was John Glenn, very, very busy with his storyboard and all kinds of stuff. And he was very pleasant and very friendly, and said, thanks for joining us. I'm happy that you're going to be working with us. He said, if you're worried about your pate, we can get you a wig. And I said, no, I'm not worried about my pate. I'm worried about the character. And his answer was literally, they told me you were a very good actor, and that's the reason I hired you. I have no time to direct you, because if I direct you, somebody's going to get killed. There's a lot of stuff going on. So can you direct yourself? And I said, yeah, sure. He said, okay, I'll see you on Monday. Shook hands, and that was it.
Was it quite liberating, that kind of approach?
Well, at least I knew what I was saying. Yeah, I like directors that don't direct. He was very easygoing. He was never upset. He never yelled. He was very friendly. Once in Key West, he rented a boat with his family and invited me on the boat, and we went fishing and stuff. He was very nice. I have absolutely no complaints about anybody.
Yeah.
We've seen John Glenn a few times in the last year, and we've interviewed him as well. And all the actors as well always say the same thing, where he just lets them do their thing, because he's got a lot on his shoulders, hasn't he? This massive film with all these stunts and set pieces. He just lets each person do what they're expert in, and he's there to sort of bring it all together, I suppose.
Yeah, he was. There was one scene that they eventually cut out of the movie, but there was a scene in Acapulco, where the Chinese or the Japanese, whatever they were, the Orientals, were eating dinner with Sanchez, and I was sort of biting my nail like this. But then, and then the continuation of that scene was shot like 2 weeks later in Churubusco.
Right.
So from location, we came to Churubusco, and I'm very good at continuity. I keep my continuity. So I was doing this, and that's the one time John approached me and said, Alex, you were doing that in Acapulco. And I said, I know. Thank you very much for reminding me. And then the scene was Robert Davi and I would walk into James Bond's room, and Timothy was lying there in bed.
Yes.
And Robert said something nasty to James Bond, and then the instruction was Robert Davi turns around and walks out, and I look into James Bond's eyes before walking out, and then when and after they cut, I could just hear the whole crew and John. They were roaring, they were laughing. They thought that was the funniest thing in the world.
No, we actually watched it as a group of Bond fans, about 200 of us, a couple of years ago.
Really?
And that got a really big laugh. That it did, because I think when you watch it at home and you're not always concentrating, you miss these little bits like that. But you sort of just gaze upon Bond, don't you, for a lingering second or two. You sort of gaze at Bond, don't you? Because you're there longer than Sanchez in the room.
He was not my friend.
No.
And so I was sort of trying to intimidate him. And it was like saying, you're just a piece of shit. You know?
Yeah.
The audience knows who James Bond is, but Perez doesn't.
Yeah.
To Perez, it's just another scumbag. And the reason I did that was because I do that a lot in real life. So it wasn't too difficult.
Did you get to spend much time kind of working or like on set with Timothy Dalton?
Well, I spent a lot of time on set with him, yes, for sure. We didn't spend a lot of time together off set. He for some reason, stayed in some fancy hotel where the rest of us didn't stay. So he got extra VIP treatment. We all got VIP treatment.
Yeah.
But he got extra VIP treatment. So I didn't see much of him when we weren't working. I only saw him when we worked, except once there was going to be a big dinner party at a fancy restaurant in Mexico City. Well, I knew this restaurant. You know, it's one of the more expensive restaurants in Mexico City. So I dressed up for the occasion because, you know, it had to do with the press or something. And as I was checking in, Timothy arrived, and he was just wearing trousers and a shirt, a nice shirt, but just a shirt. I was wearing a suit and a tie and everything. And gee, I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this. So they wouldn't let him in.
Oh, really?
So they said, "Sorry, sir, you can't come in if you're not wearing a tie and a suit."
To James
and he went, "What?" And I told the guys at the hotel, at the restaurant, I told him, but he's James Bond. He's the reason we're here. We're all here because of him. If he's not here, you know, it doesn't make any sense that we're here. He said, the rules are the rules. And he was kind of pissed off. And fortunately or unfortunately, the restaurant seems to be used to these incidents. So they said, but we can rent you a tie and a suit if you want. And I just couldn't translate that to him. So I paid for the rental. I said, okay. I didn't tell him. It would have broken my heart to tell him, you got to pay for a tie. So it wasn't so much, you know, maybe $10 or something. So I rented a tie and a coat so that they would let James Bond into the restaurant.
Great story. Yeah, I was just going to say about the sort of climax of the film, and you're heavily involved with that, and you know, there's the chases on the tankers, and you get dusted. You have to drive through those flames. You've got the bazooka, and then ultimately you guys go off the cliff and everything. How long did all that take? Was it like a nightmare to shoot? And I don't know, was it really, you know, was it really full on? Did it take a lot out of you?
You know, it was never a nightmare because they were always so nice.
Yeah.
So that helps it not be a nightmare. But the weather was very hot. It was like 120 degrees.
Yeah.
Fahrenheit. it was 45 degrees Celsius or something. And sometimes, for some, we used to use film, regular old-fashioned film. And I think when the weather got hotter than 40 degrees, the film starts to melt or something.
Right.
So they had to tell us, we got to stop because it's too hot. So we would all go to our motorhomes and wait for the weather to come down, for the heat to come down. It was, to be honest, it was a pleasure. I never had any inconveniences. I remember one day they told me, listen, we got to leave the hotel really early for some reason. And we left like at 5 a.m., but it was like a 2-hour drive to a location. And we got to the location and they put me in a motorhome and they said, okay, we'll call you, get dressed, put on your wardrobe, and we'll come and get you. And I was there all day and I didn't shoot anything. So, to this day, I don't know what happened, but we didn't shoot anything. When the plane flies over us and what's it called, the crop duster or something?
Yeah.
It wasn't so bad. I just got a bit of dirt on my mouth and that was it.
Yeah.
It wasn't so bad. What I had a little bit of a hard time with is I had never used an Uzi machine gun. I didn't even know what they were. And suddenly, these were given to us by the military. They were real. They were not props. Yeah. And so we had to sign a piece of paper, and then they would give us our Uzi. And me and the 4 stuntmen that were with me were 3 stuntmen. And I just remember the soldiers saying to me, make sure when you fire it, what's it called? The thing that comes out that's made of brass. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it's called.
A shell.
But the shell, yeah. Mm. He said, make sure the shell doesn't hit your face because it burns. Ugh. And I went, oh, really? Well, so as I ran as fast as I could, simultaneously firing the Uzi, I would go,
yeah.
to make sure it didn't hit my face. And I never got hit, no. And the bazooka scene, they called it a missile launcher, but it's a bazooka. I'm amazed of how well they edited it, When I was shooting it, I was thinking, Jesus Christ, how are they going to do this? Because the camera's pointing at me. I'm holding the bazooka. But do you think I'm looking at the tanker truck? No, I'm looking at the whole staff and the crew. They're all standing there. And the camera. And I have to imagine the truck is coming.
Okay, que pase.
There's no real truck, so it's all in my imagination. And they're holding up a big red circle saying, keep your eye on this red circle so that when they edit, they can edit. And so my expression or whatever you see on screen comes all out of my imagination because it's only when I saw the movie that I knew what I was supposed to be reacting at.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it came out that well because I didn't have a clue of what was happening. The second unit director was very, very, very nice. He was so nice, he gave me the biggest close-up in the whole movie.
Yeah.
When I'm firing the bazooka, it's basically just my mouth.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was just telling me how to smile, and he was directing me. But I had no idea they were doing such a big close-up, I even heard, I'm not sure about, but I've heard that somebody got mad because I got a bigger close-up than he did.
Did you get on?
I'm not saying names. I'm not saying
no. Most of the film, you're hanging around with the character Brown, aren't you? Is it Guy de Saint-Cyr?
Yeah, he disappeared. He's vanished.
Right.
He After that, I saw him maybe a couple of times. And then last time I saw him, he said he was going to become like an acupuncturist or something.
Wow.
I guess he did, because he was never to be seen again. He's never acted again. I've, sort of vanished from the face of the earth. We had a good friendship. We were good buddies. He was much bigger than I am. I mean, he was a huge mastodon. But he was also a very loving and very sweet guy. So actually, I miss him, and sometimes I look him up on Facebook, hoping to find him. But I don't know what happened. I know he got divorced. Maybe that had to do with it.
It's kind of it's such an intense relationship, isn't it? When in the filmmaking process, where you're basically living with these colleagues and acting, and obviously that brings its own intensity. So you must feel that actually there is that you do want to sort of carry on that friendship beyond the actual production.
Well, you have to remember, I was a practicing Buddhist, so I rarely got tense. It was, I can't even remember having ever tensed up during the whole process. I never got nervous. Somebody once asked me, "Are you nervous?" I said, "No, why should I be nervous?" "Well, because you're in a James Bond movie." And I said, "Oh, really?" So no, I never got nervous, and I still don't get nervous. And now I sort of still follow a lot of the teachings of Buddhism, but I don't belong to a temple. I don't dress like a Buddhist. But there are things I can't avoid. For example, I get up at 4:30 a.m. every day, whether I like it or not. I can't help it. Because it's just ingrained in me.
Yeah.
But and I'm still a vegetarian and stuff like that. But now I don't have a guru or a teacher. Like I like saying I'm a freelance Buddhist. I don't need someone to tell me what I'm allowed to eat or what I'm not allowed to eat. I can decide for myself. I'm old enough. I'm going to be 70 years old in a year and a half. So, I might as well learn to be independent.
One of the most famous scenes in the film, certainly now, is where Milton Crest is put in that thing, and his head blows up.
Oh yeah.
And you're the one who snitches on Milton Crest, aren't you? You snitch to Sanchez.
Would I make up a story like that? You must have seen something.
I whisper in the ear. In his ear, I whisper, "Encontramos el dinero."
Oh, right. Is that what you're saying? Right.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
That means we found the money.
Oh, right. Brilliant. Never knew.
But they told me to improvise that line. That line was not in the script.
Yeah.
John just said, "Go up to Sanchez and say something in his ear." So that's what I thought of saying, and that's what I said. And from there, Sanchez comes down. And now that you're talking of Milton Crest, I think that he should get more credit than he gets as an actor.
Yeah.
We did back then. We didn't have IMDb. We didn't have Facebook. We didn't know who was who. I mean, we were all a bunch of actors. I knew he was an older actor, but when I started seeing him, I realized what a fantastic actor he was. Because that part, the Milton Crest part, is probably the most difficult part in the movie. I don't know if people realize it. I mean, if you guys as fans realize it, but he was very contained. Any other actor could have ruined that part.
Right.
And so every time I saw him act, I was like, "Whoa, this guy, he must be really famous because he's really, really good." And other actors did not impress me as much, but he really impressed me. I thought he was fantastic.
Because he's a bit drunk, isn't he, at some points? And he's quite leery with Lupe, and he's a very, very unusual character in a Bond film. Not like any we've seen in any other Bond film.
Ryan! What a surprise! I didn't think you'd be here.
Yeah, I like surprises. You seem to be having a lot of problems lately.
Well, we had this crazy harbor pilot.
Let's talk about the money you owe me.
Why don't we talk inside?
Does he have a safe?
Not up here, maybe below.
Have a look around.
I love his character. If you ask me what's my favorite character in the movie, that's him.
Yeah, good, right? That's good. That.
Yeah.
But I'm not a film critic, so.
What was it like to film that scene, though? Did you have to see the sort of prosthetics where his head goes up and all that?
Well, it took us 4 days, four full days to film that scene. That was shot in Churubusco. They built the submarine or the inside of the Wave Crest. They built it in the studios. And so one day we shot, let's say, everything from north to south. You know, they knocked down the north side wall, put the lights there, and we shot towards the south. And then the next day we came back, the north wall was up, and then the east wall was down. And we shot everything from that side, from that angle. And the next day we came back, and then the west wall was gone. And we shot everything from west to east. And lighting it, I remember, was we would rehearse it, and they would say, okay, now you go back to your dressing rooms. We'll call you when you, and it would take them like 4 or 5 hours to light the set. And of course I remember the line, what about the money, patron? Under it.
Yeah.
So good.
Great line.
That got cheers in the cinema last year. That got a load of cheers, that line. Brilliant.
Yeah.
What about the money, patron?
Launder it.
And they did an amazing job. When I got there and saw what they were going to do, I was like, gee.
Yeah.
But then when they had made like, I don't know, at least 10 heads that looked like Anthony Zerbe. And so they would shoot once and then go back to us and then put in a slightly bigger head and then go back to us and then put in a slightly bigger head and then go back to us and then put a slightly bigger head and go back to us until finally they put the balloon head that blows up. And my reaction was real.
Yeah.
You know, because then said, okay, now you react to that. And when it blew up, I really went, ugh.
Yeah, that's it.
I wasn't acting. I was grossed out.
On the TV version and some of the edited versions, it cut out that bit and it just cuts to the face. It just, it cuts out the head blowing up, and then so all the audience know of how horrible it is your reaction to it. So you have quite an important shot, really, for the film.
Well, I haven't seen it on TV, to be honest. I've just seen it in the theaters, but I think somebody said it's on Netflix. I'll look it up and see what the TV version looks like.
It might be okay now. I think they've kept it all in. I think all that with Felix's leg being bitten off as well. It's quite a violent film.
Well, yeah, I guess. I think it's probably the most violent film I've been in. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also the most wonderful film I've been in. You know, it's everybody, all the Brits that came down, which included everybody. The script woman, who was wonderful, the props people, and it's the only movie I've ever been in, and I've been in about 40 movies, which is not too many, but no matter what I said, for this scene, I need a white rose. And I remember the prop boy, who was very nice, and he was like, yes, sir. 5 minutes later, he came back with a white rose. I was like, shit,
What?
how did he do that? So sometimes I would even test them, I need porcupine. And they would come back with a porcupine. And I was like, shit, how'd they get the porcupine? And then sometimes John would say, no, what do you need a porcupine for? And the porcupine wouldn't be in the shot, but at least it was there.
Oh, so he did get it.
And yeah, sometimes we had crazy ideas, and if it was too crazy, John would say, no, that's too crazy. But if it wasn't too crazy, then we would do it. But yeah, I remember the with particular fun is the props people and the script women and well, everybody, the sound guy. Right now, I forget their names. I'm sorry, but I send my love to all of them because without them, the actors, we work the least. All we get to do is party, fun, fun, fun. But the rest of them, they really bust their asses to make sure it comes out.
Yeah.
And everybody worked so hard. I also remember Simon, Timothy Dalton's stuntman. Shit. When I saw him hanging from that airplane, I was like, fuck, man. I hope he doesn't have any children because I was sure he was going to get killed. I know by now that I'm never going to have another experience like that. And back then I was 33 and I was stupid. I'm still stupid. But I thought it was easy getting to a Bond film because it was easy for me to get into a Bond film. But now looking back, I realize how difficult it is getting into any film.
Yeah.
Like this stupid film starting tomorrow is a piece of shit. And I had to audition I don't know how many times and callbacks and this and that. Oh, fuck. You would think you were shooting a James Bond film, guys.
Did you get to go to the premiere of License to Kill?
That's a touchy subject.
Oh.
No, unfortunately not. This is kind of personal. My father was in his deathbed.
Oh, right.
And eventually he did pass away.
Oh, sorry, Alejandro. Yeah.
So no, I didn't go.
Oh.
Sorry.
No.
Sorry, but not sorry. Well, I'm an actor. I'm a sensitive guy. And so I had to be here.
Yeah.
I have a daughter who lives near London in a little town.
Yeah.
And so she told me it's about 11 hours.
Right.
But I've never been to London. But she comes about once a year on school holiday. And she tells me how cold and rainy it is.
It's been like that today. Yeah. Not like Mexico. No, well, you're always welcome in England, Alejandro. There's lots of Bond events.
Yeah.
People would love to see you because there's.
Are you kidding?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They would absolutely. They've and they really take the Bond fans in particular. Really love License to Kill. Its reputation's grown massively over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
That's one thing you guys need to explain to me because there's a lot of like general audience, let's say, not Bond fans, but people who don't like License to Kill so much for some reason. They all like the other Bonds better or this or that. Yet the Bond fans love License to Kill.
Yeah.
And it's the first Bond film that's not based on any of the novels.
Yeah.
So how can that be? Can you please explain?
Well, yeah, there was only so many novels before Ian Fleming died, but the License to Kill is the first one which wasn't named after a Bond novel. But the irony is, there's lots of stuff in the film that is in the novels. I mean, the torture scene of Felix is in Live and Let Die, for instance, the book. So that was another. You're in the scene there, holding Felix, and that's another amazing scene where Benicio del Toro's that line, had a nice honeymoon. Just like,
Where's my wife? Don't worry. We gave her a nice honeymoon.
What was Benicio like, actually, while we're mentioning? Because he was very young, wasn't he?
Well, he was a sweetheart. He was 21. He was spectacular. He was gorgeous. I knew that he was born to be a star.
Yeah.
He had only shot one movie before. When we were in Key West, when we were not working, we would just be walking around, going from one restaurant to another. He and I would hang out a lot.
Yeah,
Just he and I in Key West. And we always spoke Spanish. And we were walking down the street, and I could see the women dropping dead right and left, just going boom, boom, boom. Benicio, what do you give them? I don't know, man. Oh, they're stupid. I don't know. And yeah, women just loved him. I mean, he could have any woman he wanted. I guess he did too.
He probably did all right.
He was wonderful. We had a great time, and we stayed in touch after the film ended. Actually, he's the one I stayed in touch with, really.
Yeah.
And then some agent in LA decided they wanted to sign me. And a lot of people thought I shouldn't, but I thought, So when at least for about a year's time, whenever I went to LA, I would stay at Benicio's.
Oh, right, okay.
Which I thought was very nice of him.
Yeah.
And what's amazing, I found out not too long ago, is he still lives in the same apartment.
Oh, right. That is unusual. Yeah.
He bought a huge house where he has his office and stuff like that. But basically, he spent the night in the same apartment.
You can hear loads of our other episodes on iTunes, Spotify, and our YouTube channel, where we have interviews, special episodes, and reviews of all the Bond films. So simply search Really 007 Pod, and you should find loads of weird and wonderful content.
Remember, you're only president for life.
This chair that I'm sitting on was at the bank. The bank that, where France signed.
Banco de Isthmus.
Yeah, the Banco de Isthmus.
Really?
So at the end of the shoot, there was so much stuff they had that they couldn't take back to England. They decided to sell it. One of the things they sold that I bought was this chair.
Adelante.
Señor Bond.
I've come to make a small deposit.
I'm sure my people downstairs are quite capable of it. Please sit down.
I also bought other things, but I bought it was this is the only movie I have been in where they have at least 5 pieces of every single wardrobe.
All right.
So like we were shooting we were shooting the desert, the bazooka scene. As soon as my shirt got slightly wrinkled or wet under the armpits, they took it off and brought a brand new one, put it on. And that shirt only lasted like 3 minutes because it was 110 degrees. So as soon as it got wet or wrinkled, they would take it off and bring a new one. So I had 5 of everything, as did everybody else. And so at the end of the movie, they just sold everything. And I bought a few items, some very nice Italian silk shirts. Almost every shirt that you see me in is Italian and silk and a couple of $1,000 worth. It was, every wardrobe was $4,000 or $5,000 worth. And they had 5 of each. That was very amazing. And I didn't know that they handmade shoes in England. I thought that was for third world countries making things by hand. But my shoes were handmade in England. It's a very famous brand. I don't know if I'm allowed to say brands or not.
Yeah, go for it.
Go for it. Yeah.
Cole Haan. And so my Cole Haan, I had several of them. And I bought a pair at the end. So I keep this as a souvenir.
So
these
nice.
were actually worn during the bazooka scene.
Oh,
that is so good.
Amazing.
I don't use them.
Yeah.
Oh.
I just keep them as souvenir. I also have a silk sweater that Franz Sanchez wore. It was hand knit silk thread made in Italy. I remember the price was $8,000, brand new. But he didn't buy it at the end of the shoot, so I bought it. And
Wow.
there somewhere. I was going to show it to you, but I just couldn't find it.
Oh my word!
Wow.
Launder it. Yeah.
that production was just like, I've never ever been in any other project where they take such incredible good care of everything, to every detail, you know. And another thing that amazed me, that I've never seen again, is about 3 or 4 days before we started shooting, they gave me the shooting plan. It was a big book about this thick, like that, and it had from day one, scene one, it had the exact date and time at which we were going to start shooting, and the 16 weeks were there day by day, scene by scene, and it ended, 16 weeks later in Churubusco, the scene where I bite my nail. That was the last scene of the movie that we shot.
Right.
And in this book that they gave us, the shooting schedule, it said we will finish on such and such a date at 3 p.m. and afterwards we're gonna have a party.
Oh, amazing.
And when I saw that, I thought, man, these guys have to be crazy. They don't know what they're doing. They're in Mexico. Nobody's on time in Mexico. So I thought, I think they're just dreaming. Oh, that's my Chihuahua working. Gotta meet, Ben, gotta meet. Lo and behold, to my amazement, exactly on the date they said we'd wrap up, at exactly 3 p.m., John Glenn said, wrap it up.
Oh,
wow.
Efficiency.
Yeah.
Amazing. Can I please ask about your character, if that Perez, if that's okay, Alejandro? I mean, I know you've previously talked, but you just referenced the finger biting scene, and as I look at the scenes of Perez, so much is based around show don't tell. It's based around what your facial expressions and your tics rather than your lines. And there's obviously the stare in Sanchez's hotel, but there's also there's a stare in the casino scene when Timothy Dalton comes in, and he makes a slight against yourself and against Truman Lodge about saying it mustn't be too hard to acquire, that special skill in Isthmus.
Well, one has to show a special talent that people here don't have.
Well, that shouldn't be too difficult.
And I was just wondering, like, how much of that was your interpretation of the character, or how much of that was directed for you to perform Perez in that way?
It was 100% mine. And so I directed every single thing I did. I directed myself, except maybe they told me stand here or stand there, or sit down or get up or fire the bazooka, that kind of stuff, But what you mentioned about the eyes is something that I've always paid a lot of attention to. Many years ago, Alfred Hitchcock said, what comes out of your eyes is more important than what comes out of your mouth.
Brilliant.
And I teach that to my students. I'm very emphatic about that. So I talk a lot with my eyes, even in my real life. Sometimes my daughter will go like, don't look at me like that. And I'm saying, yeah, I'm just looking. But I have what they call in Mexico a heavy stare. I have you have to remember, when I was shooting the movie, I was a Buddhist monk at the time. And so that also gave me some sort of inner structure. I was not given any information about Perez. I was not given any information about his nationality, his age, his marital status, whether he had children or not, his sexual preference.
Yeah.
Nothing, no information. All I knew, his name was Perez. That's it. And so everything else I had to construct myself. And fortunately, it worked out. It could have not worked out. Like when we were shooting the bazooka scene, like I said, I was pointing with a bazooka, but in front of me, I wasn't looking at Timothy Dalton driving a tanker truck. I was looking at a camera. And the crew and staff and like 50 people and the military. And I was just using my imagination, hoping, I hope I don't fuck this up. Because if I do, the reshoot is gonna be so expensive. I don't even want to think of it. But they were very good because, you know, as they were shooting, they were editing, they know exactly what they were doing. So one of the ADs had a long stick with a red circle, and that was for my eyeline. And so they would always say, look at the red circle. So that when they edited, my eyeline would be looking at the right place and not just anywhere. So they were amazing. And John Glenn, it was very clear that he was editing as we were shooting. You know, when we were on the set, I could see that he was editing. You know, he was thinking of how he was going to do it in the cutting room. And I guess because he had been an editor before for previous Bond films. But a director, you know, directing actors, he himself told me, I don't direct actors, you know. You're gonna have to do it yourself. And that was actually quite enjoyable because it gave us a lot of freedom. Everything was like perfect, you know, like every actor's dream come true. That was it. To be absolutely 100% honest with you, I was not aware exactly of how big the franchise, the James Bond franchise was.
Right.
I was stupid with his monk. What did I know about the real world? You know? So they just said, do you want to do a movie? I said, sure. And so I did this movie. And later when it came out, I thought, oh my God, what did I get myself? And I keep getting mail, mostly from Germany. They send photos and they want me to send them that autograph. My agent lives in Miami, Florida. And she calls me all the time, Alex, I got some pictures from some guys that want you to autograph them. But when they send them to Miami, I can't autograph them. When they send them to Mexico City, if they find my address, then usually I can. But people need to know. I hope that this serves a purpose. People need to know that the Mexican Postal Service is the worst in the world. So if you want me to sign your photos, please send them either by DHL or FedEx or one of these companies. Because if you send them by regular mail, there's a good chance I will never get them. And I'll be happy to sign them as long as I get them, you know.
That's amazing.
Yeah, after so many years. And the fact that we're even having this talk is kind of amazing too.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned that you get a lot of autograph requests. Do you ever get asked to go to Bond conventions or anything like that?
Not yet, no. But if you want to ask me, I'll be happy to go.
Oh yeah, we can give you a word to the people we know, Alejandro.
I didn't know they had Bond conventions.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Few, like meetups and say they're celebrating an anniversary of a film. So recently there was one, a Goldfinger 60th anniversary. There's going to be a
but Goldfinger, you know, was like Goldfinger. I was a child.
Oh yeah, but most people in film, of course, have long gone. So License to Kill, obviously John Glenn is still around and he's still attending events in the UK. So it would be great for you to be reunited with him and some of the other cast, to be honest.
And
I'll be happy. Sure.
Yeah. And there'll be a lot of love for License to Kill. When we started this podcast, we thought we were the only people who thought License to Kill was the greatest film ever. And then we started talking about it, and it seems like the whole of England thinks that.
Yeah.
It seems like the whole of Germany does too.
Yeah.
Because I get German mail and they say, that's interesting because most people who are not Bond fans, that just like, they think Sean Connery was the best James Bond. Because he was very likable, he was charming, and he was cute and whatever. But he was not really in character. He was a little bit miscast, if I dare say so myself. Whoops, sorry.
Oh, that's great.
But Timothy Dalton, I've often wondered, was he in character all the time? Since the day I met him on the first day of the shoot. I didn't meet him before. And he was always the same. He was a little bit aloof, a little bit distant, not very quitches. He wasn't charming at all. Sanchez was much more charming in real life. And I've always wondered, is Timothy Dalton always like that in real life? Or was he a la Daniel Day-Lewis style, always in character through the whole film? And then when they said wrap it up, maybe he became something different.
Yeah.
I don't know as an insult. But I mean, I've never really known whether he was always in character, because I have to admit, he almost never said hello, good morning. And he almost never said goodbye, have a nice day. And he never went out with us. We would go out for lunch or stuff. He never joined us. And we never saw him. Basically, I only saw him on the set. Or like that time at the restaurant when they wouldn't let him in.
Yeah.
But that was an official event. So do you guys know him better than I do? Do you know if he's actually a nice guy in real life?
He's very, very difficult to track down, Timothy. He's very private, and I think he is a method actor. But more recently, he's been doing a bit more, I don't know, less theatre, and he's been doing a bit more mainstream TV.
Yeah. We've interviewed a few people from, we interviewed Anthony Stark from License to Kill, but also we've interviewed a few people from Living Daylights, and a few of them have spoken fondly of him. But I wouldn't say sort of, similar to what you're kind of saying. I don't think anyone's kind of said he was the life and soul of the party, or, I think they've said he was, very professional and he's a serious actor, isn't he?
Yes.
He's he takes it very seriously.
Yeah, he didn't like make any jokes or. I never saw him laugh, not once.
Wow.
Whereas the rest of us were laughing all the time. We were laughing all the way to the bank.
Yeah.
The Isthmus Bank. I mean,
the Isthmus Bank.
Yeah.
Were you even laughing? Were you even laughing when you got crop dusted with all that stuff from the aeroplane?
You have to realize there's such a thing as stuntmen, right? So when you see Perez, my character, and the henchman running from the back, when the plane comes down and dusts them, that's not me. That's a stuntman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then the stuntman gets up and leaves and cuffs himself to death. And then I take his place in the same position. They put a bit of powder on my head. They action, and all I go is. So
it's a very entertaining way to go in the film. That's what I'll say.
Yeah.
It's a very memorable death, definitely.
They protected it a lot. I've also never been in a film where before the movie, they gave me a thick book full of photographs of stuntmen. They said, "Here, choose your stuntman. Who do you want to be your stuntman?"
Oh, wow.
And
That is
they let
interesting.
me choose my stuntman.
Whoa.
And, eventually, there were a couple, but there was one from Poland who could have been my twin brother. I swear.
Brilliant.
When I saw him, I thought I was looking at a mirror. I thought, what? And I know he wasn't my brother because my father never went to Poland, as far as I know. And but the way they found the stuntman for us was amazing. I mean, we were identical. If you saw us together, you wouldn't know who was who.
Oh.
Except I could act and he couldn't.
Yeah. All the talent. Yeah. You mentioned before about the character of Perez, and you touched upon you didn't know what the sexuality was, because there's a few sort of Bond fans in England who have a theory that maybe him and Brown had something going on, because they were always they were always together, weren't they?
Inseparable.
Yeah, they were. Yeah. I don't know whether that's implied or you leave it open to interpretation.
Okay.
No,
gee, I never thought of that, you know.
Oh, well.
I don't think anyone had.
Brown, Guy de Sancerre is the biggest macho you've ever met.
Yeah.
I mean, there was, if there's one thing he doesn't like is men, for sure. So if Perez had so much as suggested a kiss, he would have had his neck broken. So the director never told us anything about that. But just for the record, I'm straight. I'm neither gay nor bi. I have 2 daughters. Not. But maybe, you know, Perez was softer than Brown. That's for sure. And I myself, as a person, although I am not gay, I have a very strong feminine side.
Yeah.
For example, I'm sure what kind of a dog do you have at home, may I ask?
We don't have any now, unfortunately. I don't think.
Well,
you don't.
What dog would you have?
Well, our family always had Labradors.
Okay, well, look at what I have. So it's easy to think Perez was gay.
Very Mexican as well, though.
Very Mexican, yeah.
Yeah, this is a very Mexican dog. But they never told us about their sexuality. And so most of the time, guys, this is gonna sound totally unmethod-like. It was me in the situation.
Yeah.
Because I had nothing else to work with. So if the situation was we're in the lab with the Japanese guys or the Orientals, then it was me in the lab. It was Perez, because I didn't have enough information. You see, in order to create a character, this is something I teach my students. In order to create a character, I need to have exactly the same information about the character that I do about myself. If I don't have every single piece of information about the character, I can't get into character. Then I'm just faking it. Then it's cartoon. So I'm going to ask you, ask me anything about myself, about Alejandro Bracho, anything about my personal life, not necessarily professional. If you want professional too, but ask me anything. You know, the most intimate question you can think of, something that would embarrass anybody else. I don't get easily embarrassed, so I won't get embarrassed. But ask me something that's almost immoral to ask.
Is that an invitation for you to ask us?
I promise I will answer with the truth. I will not lie to you. So,
wow.
This is something that I do in acting class with my students.
Yeah.
So shoot, ask whatever you want.
I don't know what to say. Have you ever been convicted of a crime?
I've never committed a crime. No, I've never committed a crime. because as a Buddhist, I am well aware of the law of cause and effect. So I know whatever I do is going to have an effect at some point. And so before I do anything, well, almost anything, I think of the possible consequences. And if I'm willing to deal with the consequences, then I might not do that. And that for a long time included who to have a relationship. I would never get involved with a woman that I would not have a baby with. You know, I was never like, I know there's a lot of actors that have sex with a lot of people, you know. In fact, one of them I know worked in License to Kill. And he was cute as a button. I can't blame the girls. But me, I was celibate for many years. Many years I was celibate. In fact, I'm celibate now, since the mother of my daughter left me. I've been celibate for over a year now. So, not that I don't like sex. I like sex as much as the next guy. But I have to think of the consequences. And now I got a vasectomy, but before I got the vasectomy, the consequences were my two daughters. And so, just like I replied to your question to the best of my ability, if you ask me anything about a character, I have to know the exact reply. Yeah. And if I have the exact reply, then I cannot get into character. Then I would be just faking it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so when that happens, like with Perez, that I had no information about him, nothing. It had to be based on me. I'm not saying that Perez was a Buddhist, no.
Yeah.
But you know, one thing is, bad guys don't know they're bad guys. The audience decides they're bad guys. You decide I'm a bad guy. I don't know I'm a bad guy. I'm just doing my work. You know, they pay me $5,000 a day to shoot people. Fuck it, I'm gonna do it. You know, I have a family to feed. I do remember thinking that Perez had a family to feed, and to him it was a job. You know.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. Yeah.
He wasn't doing it out of spite. He wasn't doing it just to bother James Bond. You know, he had a good. I mean, $5,000 a day is quite a lot of money, and that's what a lot of guys in the drug trade make. And so they tell me, shoot at him. Sure, I'll shoot him.
Yeah.
And I have to think of my family, and of course, maybe Perez was as careful as circumstances allowed. But when he tragically dies driving off the cliff, that's not his fault. It's the stupid Brown.
Yeah.
Couldn't drive. Wow. Brown was an imbecile, so there's not a chance I was going to fuck that guy. Before we were going to shoot the scene, we were told, you know, it's kind of a dangerous scene, be careful, da-da-da. And he and I got into a fight right before, the actor and I, both actors, not the characters, we had a fight as we were sitting in the pickup truck right before the scene, because he had this stupid theory about how he was going to play the scene. And I was saying, look, just don't get us killed, you know? The rest doesn't matter. You don't have to worry about whether it's going to... He wanted to look handsome in the fucking scene. And I said, listen, dude, this is not the scene to look handsome in. We don't give a... You know? All we have to do is make sure that you, Guy de Saint-Cyr, and me, Alejandro Bracho, don't get killed. That's all we have to worry about. They will take care of the rest of whether we look handsome or not, or whatever. And so we had this big fight, and after the movie premiered, he told me, "You know, Alex, you were right. Now that we saw the movie, my close-up wasn't even in the shot."
Oh, no.
He was so worried about his close-ups. You know, he had a big ego,
right?
And I think that's one of the reasons he's no longer in the business. Once I was a casting director in a different project, and I cast him. I shouldn't be saying this. Nah, forget it.
Okay,
no,
that's fine.
I'm going to say I cast him in a part, and during on the first day of work with an American director, the director told him what to do, and he had another idea. I said, no. I think I'm gonna, instead of what you're suggesting, he told the director, instead of what you're suggesting, I already decided, blah, blah, blah. And the director said, "Oh, great, okay, fine." And he called me and said, "Fire him. I want another actor."
Right. Wow.
So he got fired on the first day of work in that other project. And I never saw him again. Never saw him again after that.
Wow.
So when a director says, "I'm not going to direct you," he means he's not going to direct me about my sexual preferences, or whether I'm a vegetarian or not, or whether I'm a Buddhist or not, or what religion my mother practiced. But he will tell me where to stand.
Yeah.
He will tell me what to fire at. And that's not under discussion, you know.
But you knew you were a very violent person, because I think the first scene we see you in is you garroting somebody from behind, which is brutal for a Bond film. Yeah.
Well, I'm not a violent person myself, but Perez was. And so if Perez needs to be violent, he's violent, you know. But he was not violent in the same way that Dario was.
Yeah.
It was a different type of violence. It was more subdued. You know, one cannot avoid, as an actor, lending some of one's own qualities to the character. So if I'm not violent in real life, it's most likely that my characters won't be too violent. Actually, there's a casting director here who said, "You know, I want you to take a headshot where you look really mean, because I want to suggest you for a part." So I took this picture I thought I looked really mean in, and they introduced me to I auditioned, I met the director, I met the producer, blah, blah. And they gave me like 3 callbacks. And in the end, they didn't give me the part because I don't look mean enough. And I'm not mean enough. That's the truth. Sometimes I can be mean to myself, yes, but usually not to other beings. There's, you know, as a Buddhist, there's one of the precepts is never harm other beings. And I think that's ingrained in my DNA. There's nothing I can do about it. So it's very hard for me to play bad guys. Very, very hard. So I almost never play bad guys. And let's say Perez is the biggest bad guy I've ever played in my life.
Right.
Assuming he was a bad guy. But he wasn't a bad guy. He was just doing his job.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he was.
He wasn't like Dario, who took pleasure from it.
When you're up to your ankles, you're gonna beg to tell me everything. When you're up to your knees, you'll kiss my ass to kill you.
I'm the least of your problems, Sanchez. If you couldn't trust Crest, who can you trust? Who's got your 500 million? Truman Lodge? What about the Stingers?
What do you know about stingers?
We're gonna go, Patron. This place will blow up any second.
Where's Helen?
I don't know.
That's the last you'll see of Heller and your Stingers.
Thanks for the advice.
Part of that character one of the early scenes is really quite gruesome. It's where I think you and Brown, maybe some others, you get Della, Felix's wife, his new wife.
Right, yeah.
I mean, that's absolutely dreadful. The terror in her face is awful, and it's implied, I don't know, all sorts of stuff you've done to her, and obviously killed her. And that's a really shocking scene. So I don't know, was that quite uncomfortable to act out?
I had to use what we use. I use a technique. I studied acting in New York under Herbert Berghoff, who was Austrian, and he was married to Uta Hagen, a German actress who twice won the Tony on Broadway for Best Actress. And so I use the Uta Hagen acting technique. And there's an exercise called substitution. So it was when I mean, one thing is reading it on paper, and another thing is actually seeing it being staged. And there were scenes that were troubling, you know, and so I needed to use a substitution in order to remind myself it was fiction. Because, you know, if you're a really good actor, it's not that I disagree with method actors, but the way I was taught to act and the way I teach is, I'm Alex, you know, Alex gets picked up and is driven to the set. Alex is asked to put his wardrobe on. Alex goes to makeup, and then Alex is asked to go on the set. And then the director tells Alex what Alex needs to do. And Alex is listening. And the moment they say action, Alex ceases to exist.
Yeah.
And does not exist all the way from action to cut. After cut, Alex comes back.
Yeah.
And then Alex goes to his motorhome and changes clothes and goes home. I don't bring the character home. I'm not in character for 6 months, you know? I wouldn't do that to my wife. Imagine a poor girl.
Yeah.
Married to some sort of monster. So I think that's, for me, that works because I think it's psychologically healthier than staying in character for 6 months. But, you know, to be honest, there are no rules. Whatever works. I mean, Day-Lewis has gotten 3 Oscars for good reason. And he's always been in character like for a year before the shoot starts, and then all through the shoot. And he's made life miserable for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But he got Oscars.
Yeah.
I try to have a good time. I try not to be an asshole as much as I can, whether the character is an asshole or not. My peace of mind is more important than an Oscar to me.
Yeah, yeah. Anthony Hopkins doesn't eat people, you know. he's just playing Hannibal Lecter, isn't he? You know, everyone knows he's a funny guy in real life and a very warm guy, but everyone is also scared of that character.
And I'm actually, I mean, I don't mean to brag, but I'm a very loving person.
Yeah.
It's part of my spiritual practice. Now that I'm a Hinduist, there are still a lot of things about Buddhism Buddhism is a way of life, not so much a philosophy. And so, I mean, I still get up at 4:30 in the morning, whether I like it. And I'm still a vegetarian. But Hinduism is more loving. And actually, my Hindu name is Premananda. If you know any Hindus, ask them what Premananda means. It means the bliss of love. And so when I teach my acting classes, I say, whatever you do, no matter what part you're playing, it has to stem out of love. First comes love, and then out of love comes your character, comes your action, or the scene, or whatever. This is different from the Stanislavski or Lee Strasberg method, you know? And so, actually, you may or may not realize it, but Perez was a very loving person. And maybe that's why they thought
Yeah.
But I don't think Perez was gay. He hit on Lupe once, and it didn't work out.
Is that Does that mean the character or the actor?
Both.
Yeah. Brilliant, right? Oh, please tell us more about that. This is brilliant.
The character or the actor?
Either or both, please. Alex.
Okay. Well, the character, there's a scene in the bank.
Oh, yeah.
Where Lupe is standing there, and she's standing next to I don't know if it was Dario or Brown, one of the two. And I walk into frame and stand next to her. You remember that scene?
Yeah.
It's a very short. So during the rehearsal, of course, this was not in the movie because it didn't happen. But during the rehearsal, and mind you, she was 21. She was gorgeous. She was a very nice person. She was very, very sociable. And it was not hard to feel attracted to her.
No.
So Alex was attracted to her. So I thought, why wouldn't Perez be attracted to her? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, so that answers the question about Perez being gay. If anything, he was bisexual. So so during the rehearsal, since John really didn't really direct us, and I didn't know what the frame was. I didn't know if it was a big open shot or a medium shot or whatever. So I walked to her during the rehearsal and I held her hand when we were rehearsing, as if to imply that maybe there was something like cheating on Perez with me or something.
Right.
But then when they said cut, she said, "Don't ever do that again." And I'm very respectful, so I never did that again. So Perez never hit on her again.
No.
Now Alex once took her out, and much to my surprise, she said yes.
Oh, brilliant! Well,
I didn't think she was going to say yes. That was in Mexico City, and so I took her to a place which is called Plaza Garibaldi. Have you heard of mariachis? So it's a place where all the mariachi bands play.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Amazing.
And there's a big bar that's very, very typical, Salon Tenampa, that is, it's been around forever. It's been in a lot of movies. And Perez didn't drink and Alex doesn't drink, but it was a tourist spot. So I took her to this tourist spot and I asked her what she wanted, and she asked for a shot of tequila. And I thought, what am I going to do? Am I going to ask for a glass of water, sissy? So I thought, if she's going to ask for tequila, I'm going to ask for tequila because, it's sort of the courteous thing to do. So, but I'm not used to drinking, so I got really drunk, or quite drunk. She drank the tequila and nothing happened to her. She was fine. But I drank the tequila and I started hitting her. And she was very mad. She said, "Take me back to my hotel." So I took her back to her hotel and she never talked to me again.
Oh, no.
After that, I was not staying at the hotel because that was in Mexico City and I have a home in Mexico City. So I didn't have to go to the hotel, but I paid the consequences, and she did go out with, you guys probably already know, she had an affair with Dario, not the character, the person.
Oh, right. Benicio.
Yeah. And there was a time when it was quite open. It wasn't a big secret. They went to Las Vegas together. And so, I guess my timing was off.
Yeah.
One. And two, I cannot compete against Benicio. He was gorgeous. I mean, women would literally kill themselves for him.
Yeah.
So it's more logical that she would have an affair with a 21-year-old Puerto Rican like herself, who was also 21 years old and Puerto Rican, than with some stupid Mexican.
Well,
and by that I also mean Brown. Brown also hit on her. He told me himself.
Yeah.
and then he told me he hit on her. He was a womanizer. He loved women, and she told him, "Look, Guy, if I say yes, you're gonna be in such deep shit. You're not gonna know how to get out of it. You cannot afford me." She was very literal. He thought about how much she made and how much he made. And he said, okay, well, it was worth a try. So the only actor who was able to score with her was Benicio.
Okay. But as far as you're aware, Tim, was he not trying it on with his female coach?
Absolutely not.
No.
I keep thinking he was always in character.
Yeah.
I don't think he even hit on himself during the whole shoot. Except shaken, not stirred.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Vodka martini, ¿qué?
Shaken, not stirred.
Ah, sí.
But other than that, I don't think he had a sex life.
What was Carrie Lau like? Did he have many scenes with her?
I had a couple of scenes. She was very, very, very nice. She kept her distance. She made it perfectly clear that you couldn't get closer than 1 foot. But she was very sociable. Like one day my brother came to the set and she had no problem taking a picture with him. I don't know if she was already dating Richard Gere or not. That I don't know. But she always stayed in a different place than everybody else. Like if all the cast was staying in a particular place, she always found some sort of tiny boutique hotel somewhere that was 10 times more expensive and exclusive, and nobody could find her. Once by accident, I wound up where she was staying in Key West, and it was much better place than where we were staying. So I asked the production, listen, can I stay where Carrie's staying? They said, no, absolutely not. It's in a contract. Nobody can stay in the same hotel. Yeah. But they said, but we will rent a house for you, a different house. And they were very nice. So instead of staying at a hotel where everybody was staying, which was a good hotel, it wasn't a bad hotel, they said, here's what we'll do. We'll rent a house. Find a house that you like, and we'll rent it for you. And they did. It was called the Pineapple House in Key West. And it had its own private pool. And I'm also a very private person, I've always been like, there's stuff about me that you don't know, and you probably don't care about, but I very, very, very rarely leave the house.
Right.
I only leave my house like tomorrow I have to work in that stupid film, which is the worst film I've ever been in. And then I got to leave the house, or I have to go buy groceries, But I don't party, I don't drink. Sometimes I go to the movies. Like if I tell my students, you have to watch such and such a film, and then I have to go watch it so that we can discuss it later. But I keep to myself. And now that I no longer have a wife living with me or a child living with me, I am back to being a monk, pretty much.
Yeah.
Except now I don't live in the monastery, or I should say my home is my monastery.
Yeah.
And if you come to my house, it feels like a monastery, and people always comment on the good vibes, because I'm always playing mantras, and I have pictures of Shiva and Krishna and Buddha and stuff like that. So I'm actually a very boring person, and I guess that's why women leave me.
Oh, no.
So no. I was just going to ask you about any of the the other roles that you've been in. So, like Clear and Present Danger, obviously a big film in the 90s with Harrison Ford, and then probably one that a lot of our younger audiences might know you from is Narcos. So I was just wondering if you wanted to share any of your experiences from those two things.
Well, those are probably the only two you know about.
Well, yeah. That our listeners and viewers would probably
there's lots in Mexico.
recognize you from.
But unfortunately, Romero, which is my favorite film, very few people saw. That character was a Jesuit priest, so we had a lot in common.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't hard for me to play that movie. And on the day we wrapped the film, the producer was a priest. It was produced by by an order called the Paulist Brothers, Paulist priests. And like the Jesuits have universities, the Paulists produce movies. So on the day we wrapped up, the producer approached me. He was a priest, Father Kaiser. He said, Alex, I've been watching you throughout the shoot, and we've seen your scenes, and I've discussed it with the Paulist community, and we would like you to become a Paulist priest. We would like you to join the community.
Wow.
And I thought, Father Kaiser, I was acting. I've been a Buddhist for so long. I would just not be able to be a Roman Catholic priest after having being a Buddhist monk for so long. I would be lying to you and to myself. So I had to decline this kind offer. But it was the story. The way I was in a Buddhist retreat, what is called a sesshin, which lasts for 8 days, from Saturday to Saturday. And I was a cook. I was always the head cook. I'm a very good cook. And when I left the retreat, we didn't have cell phones, but we had these little things called beepers. And I turned my beeper on, and it went crazy. I had like 30 phone numbers that had been trying to reach me. So as soon as I got home, I called my agent, and she went, "Where the fuck have you been?" I was away, and she was. Today's the last day the producer and the director are in Mexico, and you have to see them because they really want to meet you. So run to the casting director's office and audition for that film, because they want. And I was like, oh. And then I was driving my car. I used to drive. I no longer drive. But having been in a Buddhist retreat for 7 days without talking, 7 days with no talking, just meditating, eating very little. I looked in the rearview mirror, and I thought, Jesus Christ, I looked like St. Francis of Assisi, Jesus. And, I just thought about it. And then I got to the audition. Lo and behold, it was a part of the Jesuit priest. And I had been fasting for 7 weeks, and I was emaciated. And so I looked along like the character. So they gave me the lines, and when the script is well written and the actor has a lot to do, it's very similar to the part. It's very easy to learn it. You just read it once and you learn it. So that's what happened with that. So I read it once, and I was the last one because they were leaving the next day. So I walked in, took off my shirt, took off my shoes, and said, "Okay, I'm ready." And so the director read for me. I was reading with the director, and the producer, Father Kaiser, was there, and the casting director was there. And when I finished the scene, all three were crying.
Oh.
And so was I, by the way. This is the torture scene. And then the producer said, "Would you like to join us for lunch?" I said, "Sure." So we had lunch together, and then, said, "Okay, it was nice meeting you." And sure. And then I forgot about it. And like 3 months later, they told me, "Oh, remember that audition? Guess what? You got the part." Oh, wow. Really? No callback, nothing. And so that was really me. That, although I had more information on the character, that was really me, because the character was in the church, and I was Buddhist, and he was celibate, and I was celibate. There's even a line after they tortured my character, whose name was Father Osuna. They electrified his testicles. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
And so the head Jesuit asks me, "What did they do?" And I said, "They used electricity. Thank God I'm celibate, And so I know the character was celibate, and so was I. So it wasn't too hard to play. And then, okay, about Narcos, that's more interesting. That's more recent. You guys watch Narcos?
I watched some of it to begin with, actually.
Really?
I didn't see all of it, but I know it's really popular here. There are like loads of people I watch it, watched it and like loved it, like really loved it.
That's a surprise. I would have never thought so. Well,
no.
So for Narcos, the casting director, a different casting director, calls me up and says, "Alex, would you like to audition for Narcos?" And I said, "It's a waste of time. They're not going to give me the part. I don't look like a bad guy, and I'm against violence." And she said, "No, there's no violence in your scenes. You don't have to shoot anybody. Nobody shoots at you." I've been looking for an actor for this part for 3 weeks, and they don't like anybody. And this character plays on Monday, and I'm desperate. I have to find somebody. And you're like my last card. Can you please audition for the part? I said, "I'm not going to get it. But okay, I'll do it for you just because we're friends." Okay, so I don't even learn my fucking lines, Figure I'm not going to get the part. Why bother? So I go and I just sort of mumble through the lines and say, "Okay, well, I did you a favor. You owe me one. That's it." She calls me like at night and says, "You got the part." I go, "What?" So the reason one gets the part is not that one is a good actor, is that one looks like what they think the part looks. And so the character was Mr. X. All the other characters had the real names of the characters. It was very historically accurate, by the way. It's fiction. You may like it, but this really happened. And it's very blood curdling. And so, Diego Luna is using his character's name, and everybody else, and they call me Mr. X. And I go, "Why do you call me Mr. X? How can I construct my character if his name is Mr. X?" And they say, "Well, listen, we can't tell you because this guy really exists in real life. He's a big shot. And if we use his name, he's either going to sue the shit out of us, or he's going to get one of us killed, or they're going to stop the production. So we don't want to use his name. All we can tell you is he's sort of a blend between a multimillionaire like Carlos Slim and a drug dealer and the president of Mexico. He's a mixture of those three things. The only information I was given. So for the first season, I had no idea of what I was doing, really. Just whatever the director told me. And I would ask the director, and he would say, "Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know."
Narcotraficantes paseando por los pasillos del Palacio Nacional. ¿A qué ha llegado este país? ¿Qué huevos los tuyos de venir así nomás?
Estoy haciendo mi trabajo, cuidando nuestro jale, porque parece que para usted ya no es prioridad. ¿Qué está haciendo para el operativo gringo?
Designé a Calderón.
No, pues no es suficiente. Está cabrón, ¿no? El doctor, el comandante. Pinches gringos están juntando ya todas las piezas del rompecabezas. Va a caer cualquiera que tenga tantito que ver con ese pinche agente.
Tal vez podemos rematarlo. Pero te recuerdo que tú insististe en revisar el cuerpo.
Hombre, este pedo es de los dos. Yo le voy a pedir, de forma respetuosa, que ya se ponga a hacer su trabajo.
Cuida tus palabras. Estás hablando con el próximo presidente de México.
Pues mándame mi favor. ¿Por qué va a estar cabrón que llegue a la presidencia con este pedo encima? Si los gringos...
Los gringos no saben en lo que se metieron. ¿Tú crees que esto se va a quedar así? Secuestrar a un extranjero, ciudadano de un país soberano, eso está mucho más cabrón que tu pinche organización, Félix. Mi sobrino está escondido. Te sugiero que hagas lo mismo hasta que todo esto se calme. Escápate. Métete en el agujero donde se esconden las ratas como tú cuando tienen miedo.
It's the only production where I've had a bodyguard. full time. You know, they came to pick me up, and I had one of these Israeli deadly bodyguards that look like little kids, but they're actually deadly. Diego had one of those. I had one of those. And the first season, I didn't have a clue about what was going on. I would just do what the director told me. Sit there, stand up, walk, you know. But I didn't know who the guy was. And then during the second season, they changed the story. Oh, they made a big mistake because after they didn't give me all the scripts. They would give me one by one. So they gave me the first script, and it said I was the Secretary of Defense of Mexico. That's what it said. My character, Mr. X, was the Secretary of Defense of Mexico. And in my first scene, I just played a match of tennis. So I'm wearing a tennis outfit, you know, with my racket and my tennis shoes. So, you know, everybody plays with the same white outfit, whether you're the Secretary of Defense or not. But then in the next episode, I'm wearing a really fancy suit, you know, and they really had the best wardrobe made for me. They were very nice, and they allowed me to choose the fabric, and they hand tailored it for me. The suits were beautiful, but then I asked there was a guy there from Netflix, the showrunner, and I told the showrunner, come here, can I tell you something? He said, what? I said, can you just tell me whether my character is a Secretary of Defense? He said, yes. And I said, guess what? He just fucked up big time. Because whereas in the United States, the Secretary of Defense, and you can watch him on the news every night, always wears a suit. In Mexico, the Secretary of Defense is always a 4-star general in full military uniform. So if I were the general, the Secretary of Defense, I would have to be a general. So guys, you didn't do your research.
Yeah. And
so they went like, oh fuck. But it was too late. So they never ever mentioned it again. But in the second season, it turned out my character was the Secretary of State of Mexico.
Right.
And at the time, the Secretary of State, whoever it was, automatically became the next president. But this guy was so involved in the drug trade. He was the guy who allowed the drug trade to happen. You know, he would help. He got a bunch of money for it. And then I started to realize who he really is. And he does exist. After that, they did not make him the next president of Mexico because the American government realized he was in charge of the drug trade in Mexico.
Right.
So they did not allow him to become president, but he became the governor of the state of Puebla. And then he became the secretary of something else. And then he got mad at the ruling party for some reason. And then he changed parties, and now he still exists, and he works for the current president of Mexico. And he's very, very, very famous. And so when I realized who he was, I went, oh fuck, now I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
And so I went to the showrunner and I said, you guys should have told me. If I had known it was him, I would have not taken the part, because now my life is at risk. And he said, that's the reason we didn't tell you who he was.
Yeah.
But no, my life was not, I had a bodyguard throughout whenever I worked in that project. And then I'm very low key, really. I don't dress up, I dressed up a little bit today just for you guys.
Thank you.
But normally, I always wear a cap, and not even my dogs can recognize me. But sometimes I hop in a cab, a taxi, and the driver will say, aren't you Mr. Rex from Narcos?
Okay.
And I'll go, no, he's not. we look the same. You know, so I never become an actor. I never, you know, I don't try to prove anything to anybody. Happens to be a job, just like you happen to have a job. Happens to be a job that I really like, although I like teaching better because when I teach, I can decide my hours. I can decide how much I pay myself. I can decide a bunch of things. And when I shoot a movie, they tell me at what time I have to go to work, how much I'm going to earn. And then when I see the movie, I realize I have no control over what was going on. And sometimes I get really disappointed. Not with License to Kill. With License to Kill, I was very, very, not only pleasantly surprised, I was in awe. I was like, holy shit, I didn't know it was such a movie.
Yeah.
No? And that's the biggest movie I've ever been in. I've never been in a bigger movie than that. And now that I'm older, I'm gonna be 70 a year and a half from now. The older I get, the shittier parts I get, you know? But I guess that comes with old age. And I have to learn to deal with it. You know, at the time I was 33, I turned 33 when I was shooting License to Kill. I'll be 69. Oh, 69. Never mind. In June. And the older I get, the shittier parts I get. And that's just that's how it is. That's the nature of the business. Also get better at teaching. I'm a better teacher. Every day that goes by, I'm a better teacher because I learn more about myself. I don't make the same mistakes I made before. So I would hesitate to tell you this if I weren't so sure about it. But, I think I'm probably the best acting teacher in Mexico.
Really?
That's not humble, right? It's not.
No, that's great.
But it's like, can I ask you, what color are your shoes? Can you tell me what color?
They're slippers.
Yeah, I'm wearing slippers too.
You're not bragging. You're just making a statement, right? You're just telling me.
Yeah.
So in the same way, I'm not bragging. I'm just
you're just saying it how it is.
I just happen to be a great acting teacher, and I love every second of it. And it is very much like a meditation. Every class to me is like a meditation. And also on Monday nights, I have meditation for actors. So I've bonded meditation with acting as a form of meditating, or meditating as a form of acting. So I've blended my two main careers. You know, I'm a monk and I'm an actor. I'm an actor monk, and my students have become my family.
Oh, that's great. I don't know whether you met him in this film, License to Kill, but certainly you have done other projects with Pedro Armendáriz. That's right.
Yeah, I worked with him in other projects afterwards. As a matter of fact, he was so much fun. He was a barrel of monkeys. He was so funny. He was always telling these funny stories. So we always wanted to cast him, if for no other reason, at least to have a good time.
Oh.
His Excellency, Presidente Lopez.
Esto pasa. ¿Cómo estás?
There's been a mistake with my check. Look at it. It's half the usual amount.
You were very quiet when I was arrested. Remember, you're only president for life.
So I worked with him in another project called Sweating Bullets that we shot in Puerto Vallarta. He was always very nice and very friendly. He was not stuck up at all. You know, he would always take me out for dinner or for lunch or for something. And then I cast another movie as a casting director, and I cast him in one of the main characters, just because he's a nice guy. I didn't care if he was in character or not. And so a lot of people cast him because he was so nice. And he did a lot for now. We have famous directors like Alfonso Cuarón. I'm sure you've heard of him.
Yeah.
Alfonso Cuarón got a lot of support from Pedro. Pedro would always support the new directors. He would help them out as much as he could. And so a lot of now famous directors owe their careers to Pedro Armendáriz. And we greatly miss him. He is very greatly missed. He was a very, very nice man.
And of course, you know his dad was in From Russia with Love.
Yeah.
As Kerim Bey,
Oh,
who's brilliant actor.
His dad was the first Mexican in a Bond film.
Yeah. He was dying of cancer at the time as well.
Yeah.
It was very sad.
And that, he committed suicide.
Yeah, he did.
Yes.
Yeah, it was very sad. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the father, you know, the guy who was in Russia with Love.
Yeah.
That one committed suicide. This Pedro had a heart attack.
Yeah.
It was unexpected. You know, he was fine today. Tomorrow he was dead. So we were all very sorry to see him go. But he was a good human being. He was a great. And License to Kill, I think he was the perfect cast for that part, for the president. I think the casting was very good. You know, it was cast by Jane Jenkins, who at the time was the biggest casting director in Hollywood.
Yeah.
She cast a lot of the Coppola films. She discovered Julia Roberts. She discovered a lot of actors. And she discovered me, and she said, and she gave me a letter in writing saying she had met every single actor in Mexico, and I, without a trace of a doubt, was the best actor she had ever met.
Brilliant.
She gave me that in writing. I have that in writing, actually.
Yeah.
But then, what happened? Some people will sometimes say, well, don't you feel bad about having failed in Hollywood? You know, everybody thought you were going to be a big star. And then, you know, you let us down and you're not a star and you're just a stupid acting director. But no, I have no regrets, because if I were a movie star, I wouldn't have my daughters.
Yeah.
And to me, my daughters are more important than anything else. And but that's one thing that I wanted to ask you guys, because you know better than I do. Was License to Kill like the exception to the rule, or does it sometimes happen that almost everybody who was in License to Kill, except for Benicio del Toro, everybody else disappeared? You know, no. I mean, nobody became a bigger star. Benicio became a bigger star. Timothy Dalton pretty much disappeared. Robert Davi pretty much disappeared.
Yeah, well, to be fair, Robert Davi was in, let me think what order it would have been. He was in Die Hard before it.
Yeah.
Well,
and
yeah.
then after that, no, you're right. He was in Predator 2, I think. And he's been in quite a few things. But yeah, you're right. Not to the level of Benicio del Toro, who really, no, it's a fair point.
The two girls disappeared, basically. So Benicio is the only one who really became a big star. But even Timothy didn't really further his career to the degree that the other James Bonds did.
It's a film full of actors playing the part brilliantly, rather than a bunch of movie stars randomly put together.
Yeah,
that's true.
So I think it works brilliantly. License to Kill.
I think you're absolutely right. I think every actor who had a sort of an important part was a great actor. We may not have been movie stars, but we were great actors.
Yeah.
That's true.
Like
Except for the girl.
Yeah.
The girls
right. But if you could have cast, say, if you'd cast Robert De Niro or Al Pacino instead of Sanchez, Robert Davi, there's no way they could have done as good a job as Robert Davi. No chance.
It would not
sound silly, but he's perfect for that part.
Yeah.
I think Jane as a casting director, and Barbara Broccoli, who was really more in charge of the film than Cubby, because this was Cubby's last movie.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
he was handing the baton over to her. I think their main interest was making it as real as possible.
Yeah.
So they didn't cast any stars. They cast a bunch of well-known actors. But if it had been Robert De Niro instead of Robert Davi, the audience would have never believed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if they had, or if instead of me they had cast Tom Cruise, you know, the audience would have said, ah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was a nobody, and I'm still a nobody, but I was a good actor. I'm still a good actor. I just don't act as much. You know, I've had a weird life. You guys may not know this, and you know, not to brag, but my life has been weird. And so after License to Kill, I got an agent in LA. They asked me to move to LA. I hated LA. I couldn't stand it. And I moved back to Mexico. My father died of AIDS. He was gay. And from there on, my life sort of, not that it went downhill, because it didn't go downhill, but let's say my interest shifted, you might say. So I never wanted to be a star. In order to be a star, you have to want to be a star. You know, it has to be your goal. And that was never my whole goal was just being a regular guy, leading a regular life. And that I have achieved to a greater or lesser extent. I get stopped in the street maybe once a week. You know, somebody recognizes me for something. And once a week I will say, no, it's my cousins. I mean,
Alejandro, honestly, thank you. This is
it's been wonderful.
Honest, heartfelt interview we've ever done, and you've been amazing. Thank you so much for everything you've said, all the time you've given, and all these amazing stories, which are some are hilarious, some are very insightful. So everyone's going to love listening to this, and
they will. It's going to be really well received, Alejandro.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. You've been so generous.
Well, feel free to stay in touch.
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely, sir. Absolutely. Wow.
Thank you, Alejandro.
Thank you. What a man. What a great man.
These, by the way, these are tears of joy.
Yeah.
Well,
how amazing.
I can feel it emanating all the way from England.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.